I woke up to the sound of machines. Beeping. Rhythmic. Cold. And for a second, I thought I was dead. The light above me was too bright, the sheets too white, and the air smelled like antiseptic and fear. I couldn't move my neck, every breath burned like fire. Somewhere nearby a nurse whispered, "She's awake." Then came his voice. "Thank God, baby. You're okay. You scared me half to death." My husband. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My throat felt raw, like I'd swallowed glass. He was holding my hand, or rather, gripping it so tight that my fingers went numb. His face hovered above mine, perfect mask of concern, those eyes full of that same fake tenderness I once believed in. And that's when the memories started coming back, flashes, fragments. The dinner table. The overdone steak. His rage. The sound of my head hitting metal. The taste of blood. And then, nothing. My heart monitor beeped faster. "Easy, easy," he said softly, pressing my hand. "It's okay. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt like a cruel joke. Because I knew I wasn't safe. Not with him sitting right there. Not with that calm voice that had once told me he loved me right before he broke my ribs. The nurse came closer. "Mrs. Miller, can you tell me your name?" "Sarah," I croaked, though it hurt to speak. "And do you remember what happened?" I hesitated. He was watching me. His eyes warned me, "Don't you dare." I fell, I whispered. Down the stairs. The nurse didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, really looked, and something in her face changed. A flicker of understanding. She nodded slowly. "All right. We'll take care of you." But when she turned away, I saw her hand discreetly squeeze the doctor's arm. Something silent passed between them. For the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't fear. It was hope. Small. Fragile. But real. When the doctor came back, my husband was still there. He'd slipped into that perfect role again, the worried, devoted husband. I almost laughed at the performance. Almost. But laughter hurts when you've got cracked ribs. He brushed my hair from my face and whispered, "It's all going to be fine, sweetheart. They'll patch you up and we'll go home. Just remember what we talked about." Home. That word made my stomach turn. Home meant pain. Home meant silence. Home meant dying slowly one day at a time. But I nodded anyway. Because that's what I'd learned to do. As the nurse adjusted the four, she leaned close enough that only I could hear. "You're not alone," she whispered. "Do you understand me? You're not." I froze. I didn't dare look at her, but her words lodged in my chest like a spark finding dry kindling. Not alone. When she left, he turned to me again. "You scared me tonight, Sarah. You fell so hard. I thought I'd lost you." There it was. His story. Practiced. Polished. The lie he'd built while I was unconscious. "You hit your head," he continued smoothly. "You were bleeding. I rushed you here myself. They'll probably ask questions, but we'll just keep it simple. You fell. You slipped. That's all." I stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks, focusing on anything but him. Because if I looked at him, I might break. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Pain messes with time. They wheeled me into another room for scans. He tried to follow, but the nurse stopped him. "Family can wait outside," she said firmly. He forced a smile. "Of course. I'll be right here when she's done." I watched the door close between us, and I swear I could breathe again for the first time in years. The nurse moved closer once we were alone. "Honey," she said softly, "those bruises didn't come from any stairs." Tears flooded my eyes before I could stop them. "I can't," I whispered. "He'll kill me." "We won't let that happen," she said. "You're safe here. But I need you to trust me." Safe. That word again. I wanted so badly to believe it, but fear had lived in me so long it felt like part of my DNA. When the scans were over, they brought me to a private room, not the same one as before. My husband was pacing, his phone clutched tight. He looked up when I came in, and I saw it, that flicker of anger he couldn't quite hide. "Why were you gone so long?" he demanded under his breath. "The scans," I said. "They took longer." He stared at me for a moment, then softened his tone for the nurses. She's been through a lot. I just want her home. Always so convincing. Always so good. But when the doctor walked in, something in the air changed. His expression was calm but serious, and he didn't look at my husband when he spoke. He looked only at me. Mrs. Miller, he said quietly, your scans show significant trauma. You've suffered multiple fractures and internal bruising. And some of these injuries aren't recent. The world seemed to tilt. My husband's hand tightened on mine again. The doctor went on, his voice firm. These wounds are consistent with repeated abuse. They do not match a fall. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I felt him freeze beside me. His grip loosened just slightly. His jaw clenched. Then the doctor said words that would change my life forever. Hospital security and social services have already been notified. We'll need to speak with you privately, Mrs. Miller. Sir, please step outside. My husband's mask cracked. What? No. I'm not leaving her. The doctor's tone didn't waver. You are. Right now. 2 security officers appeared in the doorway, silent, ready. He looked at me then, that look I'll never forget. A promise. A threat. Remember who you belong to, he hissed under his breath. This isn't over. And then they led him out. The door clicked shut behind him. For the first time in years, I was alone. Really alone. I exhaled, shaky and terrified and free. The doctor sat beside me. You did the right thing by surviving, he said quietly. Now, let us help you keep surviving. And that's when I started to cry, not because of the pain, not because of the fear, but because for the first time, someone believed me. When the door closed behind him, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to crumble beneath me. I could still hear his voice echoing in my head. Remember who you belong to. For so long, I'd believed that. I'd believed I belonged to him, my body, my time, my choices, even my fear. That's how he wanted it. That's how he kept control. But sitting there in that white hospital room, 4 in my arm, face swollen and bruised, something inside me started to shift. Maybe it was the way the nurse had looked at me, not with pity, but with quiet, determined understanding. Maybe it was the way the doctor had said these injuries are not consistent with a fall. Maybe it was because, for the first time, someone had seen through his lies. Whatever it was, it cracked something open inside me. Still, I was terrified. Because if he was waiting outside, it meant the nightmare wasn't over. Not yet. The nurse returned first. She closed the blinds, checked the 4, then leaned in close enough that I could smell the faint scent of lavender lotion on her hands. Sarah, she said quietly, my name's Diane. I'm the charge nurse tonight. We've contacted a social worker. She's on her way. We also called the police. My heart stopped. The police? She nodded. Hospital protocol. Once we have clear evidence of domestic abuse, we have to report it. You don't have to talk to them if you're not ready, but they're here to protect you. Panic shot through me like electricity. No, 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 you don't understand. If he finds out. Diane put her hand over mine gently. Honey, he does know. He's outside shouting at security right now. Tears filled my eyes. He'll kill me, I whispered. If I leave with the police, he'll find me. He always finds me. Diane's expression softened but didn't waver. Not this time. We'll move you to a secure floor. He won't get near you again tonight. I promise. Promises. I'd heard so many broken ones. But something in her voice made me want to believe her. A few minutes later, a woman in a grey suit entered the room carrying a folder and a soft voice. Mrs. Miller. My name's Rebecca. I'm with Hospital Social Services. She pulled up a chair beside the bed. I know this is hard. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to. But I want to explain your options. I nodded weakly, wiping tears from my eyes with a shaky hand. Rebecca continued. Right now, we can place an emergency restraining order. That means your husband can't contact you or come near you. We'll help you relocate to a safe shelter tonight. A shelter. I repeated, the word foreign and heavy on my tongue. She nodded. Just for a few days, until we find something more permanent. You'll be safe. No one there will know your real name unless you choose to share it. My first instinct was to say no. To tell her I didn't need that it was all a misunderstanding. That's what trauma does, it rewires your sense of safety. Pain becomes normal. Escape feels impossible. But then I thought of that kitchen floor. The smell of blood. The way his voice had sounded when he said, "You ruin everything." I couldn't go back. Not this time. "I'll do it," I whispered. "Please. Just, don't let him find me." Rebecca nodded. "You're doing the right thing, Sarah. I'll handle everything." Hours passed in a blur. The police arrived, 2 officers, 1 man and 1 woman. They were calm, professional, but I could tell they'd seen this before. The female officer, Martinez, spoke softly as she took notes. "We've already got him in custody downstairs. He's not going anywhere tonight. But we need your statement." "His, in custody?" I asked. She nodded. Security called it in after he started making threats in the waiting area. "He's being processed now." The words didn't register at first. For 3 years, I'd lived in fear of that man, his footsteps, his temper, his eyes. And now he was in custody. For the first time, I could breathe without watching the door. Still, a part of me didn't trust it. He was always 1 step ahead. Always manipulating, always charming his way out of trouble. "He'll talk his way out," I said quietly. "He always does." Officer Martinez met my eyes. "Not this time. We've seen the evidence, Sarah. We've seen the X-rays, the bruises. You don't need to prove anything else. We'll take it from here." Her voice was steady, grounding. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. They transferred me to a private room on a secure floor. There were cameras in the hallway and a lock on the door that required a badge. When I finally closed my eyes that night, I expected sleep to come easily. It didn't. Because when you've lived in fear long enough, safety doesn't feel safe. It feels like waiting. Waiting for the next hit, the next scream, the next betrayal. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing phantom footsteps in every creak of the floor outside. And then I remembered something the doctor had said. These fractures healed improperly. I hadn't even realized what that meant until now. There had been times, maybe a dozen, when I thought my ribs were just bruised. When breathing hurt for weeks. When he told me to stop being dramatic. He'd broken me before. And I hadn't even known. That thought hit me harder than any punch ever could. The next morning, Rebecca came back with coffee and a quiet smile. "He's been formally charged," she said. "Assault, domestic battery, intent to cause bodily harm." I felt my pulse race. "And if he gets out on bail?" "We've already arranged an emergency protective order. And we're moving you to a safe location today. The police will escort you." Safe. Again, that word. I wanted to believe it. But as Rebecca helped me gather my few belongings, a phone charger, a toothbrush, the hospital discharge papers, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Because I knew him. I knew how smart he was, how convincing, how far he'd go to maintain control. And I couldn't stop hearing his last words in my head. "Remember who you belong to. I'll be waiting." They loaded me into a discreet van that afternoon. I sat in the back, wrapped in a blanket, watching the Seattle skyline blur past. The rain hit the windows in soft streaks. For a moment, I let myself imagine this was over, that I was really free. But freedom doesn't come easy. Not when your abuser has lived inside your mind for years. Even as the van turned onto the quiet road leading to the shelter, a terrible thought crept in. What if he finds me again? When we arrived, the shelter was tucked between 2 apartment buildings, plain, unmarked, ordinary. Inside, it was warm. There were soft couches, fresh flowers, the sound of laughter from somewhere down the hall. "Welcome," said a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. "I'm Ellen. You're safe here, Sarah." Those words, "you're safe here," should have comforted me. But all I felt was the pounding of my heart, the echo of his voice, and the sinking realization that safety might never feel real again. I nodded weakly. Thank you. She smiled. We'll get you settled. You can rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk about what comes next. I followed her down the hall to a small room with a single bed, a nightstand, and a lamp. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my bruised reflection in the mirror. And that's when it hit me. For the first time in years, I didn't have to wait for footsteps outside my door. But just as I started to breathe easier, a phone on the nightstand began to ring. The caller ID read, "Private number." My stomach dropped. The phone rang again. Once. Twice. 3 times. That shrill sound cut through the quiet like a knife. I stared at it, frozen, my pulse thudding in my ears. The screen still said private number. No one was supposed to have this number. No one. Sarah. Ellen, the shelter coordinator, poked her head in. Everything all right? I forced a shaky smile. Yeah. Just startled me. She nodded gently. If it's important, you can answer here in the hall. But if you're not sure, let it go to voicemail. I nodded. But as soon as she left, the phone rang a 4th time. Something in me, maybe fear, maybe old habit, made me pick it up. Hello. At first, nothing. Just silence. And then, his voice. Miss me, sweetheart? My throat went dry. I couldn't breathe. How did you get this number? He chuckled. That low, chilling sound I used to mistake for confidence. You didn't really think you could disappear, did you? Come on, Sarah. You know me better than that. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. You're not supposed to contact me, I whispered. There's a restraining order. He laughed louder this time. Oh, I know. You think a piece of paper can stop me? Do you know how many cops I play golf with? They'll believe me before they believe some hysterical woman who ran away from her husband. His words slid into me like knives, reopening every wound I thought had started to heal. You should have died that night, he said suddenly. His voice turned cold, almost whisper-soft. Would have been easier. For both of us. I froze. My knees gave out, and I sat down on the edge of the bed, trembling. Please, I whispered. Don't do this. Oh, I'm not doing anything, sweetheart. Just reminding you you're mine. Always were. Always will be. Click. He hung up. I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. My body moved before my mind caught up. I ran into the hallway, clutching the phone, gasping like I'd just escaped drowning. Ellen was at the front desk, sorting through paperwork. When she saw me, she stood immediately. Sarah. What's wrong? He called, I stammered. He found me. Her face went pale. What? I handed her the phone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Private number. It was him. I swear it was him. Ellen pressed her lips together. Okay. You're safe here, but we'll handle this right away. I'll call the officer assigned to your case. Don't worry. But I was worried. Terrified, actually. Because if he'd already found my number, it meant he still had ways to reach me. It meant he wasn't done. It meant I wasn't free. An hour later, Officer Martinez arrived. She looked calm but serious. We traced the call. It came from a prepaid burner phone, she said. No name, no address. But we'll report it as a violation of the restraining order. Will that stop him? I asked. She sighed. It'll strengthen the case. But men like him, they don't always stop just because they're told to. The honesty in her voice scared me more than anything. She reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll get you more protection. There's a program for survivors like you, new identity, relocation, sealed records. It's not easy, but it's safe. A new identity. A new life. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. Because what happens to a person when she loses everything that made her who she was? My name. My friends. My home. My past. All gone. The next few days blurred together. They moved me to a different shelter under a new alias, Rachel Mayers. Even hearing it made my skin crawl. But at least it meant he couldn't find me. Not easily. Every morning, I woke up expecting to see his shadow in the doorway. Every night, I dreamed about that kitchen, the way he'd looked at me right before everything went black. Ellen said it would take time. Rebecca, the social worker, said the same. But time moves differently when you've lived in fear for years. You don't heal. You unlearn. Unlearn apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Unlearn walking quietly so you don't make someone angry. Unlearn flinching when someone raises their hand even just to wave. And God, it's hard. About a week later, the police came again. Officer Martinez looked tired when she sat across from me in the shelter's small interview room. We got new information, she said carefully. Your husband posted bail. He's out. My stomach dropped. What? I thought he. I know. But the system, she exhaled. He's a first-time offender with no prior record. His lawyer argued he's a respected member of the community, has ties to the area, and that you exaggerated your injuries. The judge granted conditional release. I stared at her. My mind was a fog. Conditional? He's supposed to stay at least 500 feet away from you and surrender his firearms. I let out a hollow laugh. He'll follow that as much as he followed the vows. Martinez looked down. We're increasing patrols near the shelter and your old home. And we've flagged your name with every precinct in the county. If he tries to find you, we'll know. But the thing about men like him, they don't need to try. They already know how to get to you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the rain hit the glass. Seattle rain always felt like a sad kind of comfort, like the sky understood something about sorrow that people didn't. And that's when I saw it. Across the street. A car. Parked for hours. Headlights off. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just someone waiting. But when I looked again, I saw it, the faint red glow of a cigarette. He didn't smoke. But he used to light one when he was angry, holding it between his fingers even though he never took a puff. A habit he picked up from his father, he'd once told me. I'd laughed then. Now, the memory made me nauseous. I closed the curtains, my hands trembling. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe I was paranoid. But paranoia is just what survival feels like when you've been hunted too long. The next morning, Ellen found me sitting in the kitchen, still in my robe, clutching a cup of cold coffee. You didn't sleep, she said softly. I think he's here, I whispered. Her face tightened. Did you see him? I don't know. My voice cracked. I saw a car. Someone watching. She put a hand on my shoulder. We'll check the cameras. A few hours later, she came back with Officer Martinez. The officer's face told me everything before she even spoke. There was a car, she said quietly. But the plates were stolen. We can't trace it. My throat went dry. So it was him. We can't say for sure, Martinez replied. But we're not taking any chances. You're moving again. I packed my few belongings in silence, the same way I used to when he was in one of his moods. Quiet. Efficient. Invisible. As the van drove me toward another safe house, I stared out at the rain and wondered if I'd ever stop running. They say freedom is beautiful. But no one tells you it's also lonely. Because even when you escape your abuser, you don't escape the version of yourself he built, the one who doubts, who flinches, who waits. Still, as we crossed the bridge out of the city, I looked back at the skyline and made myself a promise. If I ever stop running, it won't be because he caught me. It'll be because I learned how to stand still without fear. But the universe wasn't done testing me. When we reached the new safe house that evening, the officer handed me an envelope. This was sent to the station, she said. We don't know how he got the address. My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, me, standing at the hospital window, the night he was arrested. On the back, written in his neat handwriting, were 5 words. You can't hide forever, Sarah. I dropped the photo on the table and stumbled back like it was on fire. My chest was tight, my lungs refused to work. The image stared up at me, standing in that hospital window, pale and broken, the night he'd been arrested. Someone had taken it from outside. From the parking lot. That meant he'd been there. Watching. I wanted to scream, But no sound came out. Just a dry, trembling whisper. He was there. Ellen grabbed the photo, her face hardening. We'll call Martinez. Right now. But even as she said it, I knew. He wasn't just watching, he was hunting. That night, I couldn't sit still. My mind kept replaying every sound, every flicker of light from outside the curtains. He had always known where to find me, the motel, the hospital, the first shelter. He had money, connections, charm. He could convince anyone of anything. And now he was out there again, free. I curled up on the bed, pulling the blanket around me like armor. The shadows on the wall looked like his silhouette. Every creak in the hallway sounded like his footsteps. I kept telling myself, he can't get in here. You're safe. But my body didn't believe it. My body remembered everything. The next morning, Officer Martinez arrived before sunrise. She looked exhausted but sharp, coffee in one hand, the photo in the other. This confirms his violating the restraining order, she said. We're escalating the charges. Will they arrest him again? I asked. She hesitated, that brief pause that told me everything I didn't want to know. They'll issue a warrant. But he's smart. He'll hide until he can spin it his way. Tears welled up. So what do I do? Just keep moving forever. Martinez looked me dead in the eye. Until we catch him, yes. It wasn't meant to scare me. But it did. Because I realized something in that moment. Survival wasn't freedom. It was a different kind of prison. They moved me again, farther this time, into a small town near Spokane. A police escort followed the van all the way. New ID. New address. New everything. My name was Rachel Mayers again. But the truth was, Sarah Miller had never really left me. She was still there, shaking, cautious, waiting for the next impact. The safe house was small but cozy, with white curtains and a backyard that smelled like pine. Ellen hugged me before she left. You can start over here, honey, she said softly. He doesn't get to own your story anymore. I wanted to believe her. But trauma doesn't disappear just because you change your zip code. 2 weeks passed. Every day felt fragile, like the world could shatter if I breathed too loudly. I started going to therapy sessions at a nearby women's center. The counselor, Grace, had kind eyes and a voice like warm honey. You've lived in survival mode for so long, she told me one afternoon. Your brain doesn't trust peace yet. It takes time. Peace feels wrong, I admitted. It feels like the calm before the next storm. Grace nodded. That's normal. But one day, you'll notice the calm and you'll realize it's not a warning anymore. It's healing. I wanted to believe her. But every time my phone buzzed or a car slowed outside, I flinched. Then one evening, it happened again. I'd gone for a short walk near the woods behind the house. The air was cold and clean, my breath fogging in front of me. For a moment, I almost felt okay, like maybe I could exist in this quiet. Then I heard it. A branch snapping. Too deliberate. Too close. I froze, my heart thundering in my chest. Hello. I called softly, hating how shaky my voice sounded. No answer. Just the rustle of leaves. Then, movement. A dark shape between the trees. I turned and ran, lungs burning, legs trembling. I didn't stop until I was inside the house, door locked, hands shaking as I called the police. By the time they arrived, the woods were empty. No footprints. No cigarette butts. Nothing. Officer Martinez called later that night. We'll send a patrol car for the next few days. Stay inside, okay? I hung up, my mind racing. What if it wasn't him? What if it was? Was I paranoid, or finally seeing the truth? The next morning, I found something in the mailbox. No name. No stamp. Just an envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, another photo. This time, it was me standing in the shelter kitchen, pouring coffee. On the back, written in the same precise handwriting. Almost there, sweetheart. My knees buckled. I sat on the porch steps, shaking uncontrollably. How? How was he doing this? Everywhere I went, he was one step ahead. Every safe house, every new name, he always found me. And then it hit me. The phone. The one I'd brought from the first shelter. The one he'd called. He didn't need to find me. He could just track it. I smashed it with a hammer that night, over and over until the screen shattered, until I was sure it could never ring again. But it was too late. He already knew where I was. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. The ticking clock, the wind through the trees, the faint hum of the refrigerator, all of it sounded like footsteps. Then, around 3 a.m., I woke to a sound that wasn't the house. A car engine. Idling outside. I crept to the window, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. There it was. A dark sedan parked across the street. Headlights off. Just like before. I grabbed the phone and dialed Martinez's direct line. It rang twice before she answered, her voice groggy. "Officer Martinez." "It's him," I whispered. "He's outside again. Stay on the line. Don't move. I'm sending units." I pressed my back to the wall, clutching the phone. The car's engine shut off. Silence. Minutes passed like hours. Then, footsteps on the gravel. He was coming. I could see his shadow now, moving across the porch. Slow. Deliberate. My breath came in shallow gasps. I wanted to scream, but fear locked my voice inside my chest. Then the doorknob turned. Just a tiny sound. A click. He was testing it. And then, banging. Hard, violent pounding that rattled the doorframe. "Sarah." His voice, cold and calm. "Open the door. Let's talk." Tears streamed down my face. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "He's here," I whispered. "Stay away from the door," Martinez said. "Officers are 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. He banged again. "You can't hide from me, sweetheart. You belong with me. You know that." I backed into the kitchen, grabbed the first thing I could, a kitchen knife. My hands were shaking so hard the blade trembled. "Sarah," he shouted again. "If I can't have you, no one will." And then, silence. No more banging. No more footsteps. Just quiet. Then, from outside, the wail of sirens. Red and blue lights flooded the windows. Voices shouted. Boots on gravel. Then, the sound of a car door slamming. Tires screeching. He was running. I sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, the knife clattering from my hand. When the police burst through the door, I couldn't even speak. Martinez knelt beside me, her hand steady on my shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. "We've got him on camera. He won't get far." But even as she said it, I knew men like him don't stop because they're caught. They stop when they're gone. And I wasn't sure I'd ever be free until one of us was dead. They caught him 2 miles away. At least, that's what Martinez said when she came back the next morning. He ran into the woods, she told me, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. State police tracked him down before sunrise. He's in custody again. I sat there at the kitchen table, a blanket draped over my shoulders, hands still trembling. Is he going to stay there this time? Martinez hesitated. "We'll push for it. Multiple violations, stalking, breaking a restraining order, attempted forced entry, it's serious." But what? She sighed. "He's already calling in favors. His lawyer filed a petition for house arrest pending trial." I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and hollow. "House arrest? So he can sit in his fancy living room and send people to finish what he started?" "I know," she said softly. "We're doing everything we can. Just, stay alert. Stay alert." That was the same thing I'd told myself every day of my marriage. Stay alert. Stay quiet. Stay alive. 2 days later, I got the news. He was out. Released on bond. Fitted with an ankle monitor, as if a piece of plastic could keep me safe. Ellen broke it to me gently, but her voice cracked halfway through. "They said it's temporary," she said. "Until trial." I stared at the floor, my fingers digging into the table's edge. Temporary. Everything in my life had become temporary: homes, names, peace, even safety. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. Ellen reached across the table and took my hand. "Yes, you can. Because he wants you to break. Don't give him that. Her words were kind. But she didn't understand. He didn't just break bones. He broke parts of me no one could see. The days that followed blurred together, long hours of silence, of waiting, of scanning every shadow for movement. The officers did extra patrols, the shelter doubled the security cameras, but I still jumped at every sound. I'd startle at my own reflection in the window. The therapist kept telling me, "You're safe now." But safety doesn't mean anything when your body still remembers terror. Then, one night, I woke up to a sound that wasn't part of the house. A faint ping. Like metal against glass. I sat up, heart pounding. Another ping. I crept toward the window. My breath fogged the glass as I looked out. Something small hit the pane again, a pebble. And then, from the shadows, a voice. "Sarah." My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911, whispering into the receiver. "He's here. He's outside." He found me again. The operator's calm voice barely registered. Stay on the line. Officers are on their way." I crawled away from the window, hiding behind the couch. My hands shook so hard I dropped the phone. And then, the front door handle rattled. He was trying to get in. The sound of sirens cut through the night minutes later, but it felt like hours. Red and blue lights flashed across the windows again. Footsteps. Shouting. Then, silence. A knock on the door. "Sarah. It's Martinez. It's over." I opened the door to see her standing there, rain dripping from her uniform. "He's in custody again," she said. "He cut his ankle monitor. Came straight here." I couldn't even respond. My throat was tight, my whole body trembling. Martinez sighed. "This time, it's different. He'll face federal charges for violating interstate protection orders. That's years in prison. Years. Not forever. But for the first time, it was something." Weeks passed. The trial loomed. I had to testify. I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed against it. But I knew if I didn't, he'd keep finding me or someone else. So I stood in that courtroom, trembling in front of strangers, and told them everything. Every bruise. Every threat. Every night I thought I'd die. He sat there at the defense table, wearing a suit, his hair combed perfectly, his expression calm, almost bored. When our eyes met, I saw it again. That same cold, confident smirk. The one that used to make me feel small. But this time, it didn't. This time, I held his gaze and didn't look away. Because for the first time, I realized something powerful: he couldn't hurt me with silence anymore. The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty. On all counts. 10 years. No parole for the first 7. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, but I didn't hear any of it. I just sat there, breathing. 10 years. 10 years of freedom. 10 years to learn who I was again. When they led him out in cuffs, he turned to look at me one last time. "Enjoy your peace while it lasts," he said, his voice low. "You'll never really be free of me." The bailiff pulled him away before I could respond. But I didn't need to. Because I already knew the truth. Freedom doesn't mean forgetting. It means surviving anyway. A few weeks later, I moved again, this time by choice. A small cabin near the coast, quiet, with the sound of waves instead of sirens. I planted flowers outside. Daisies. The same kind he used to bring me after every fight. Now, they were mine again. Some nights, I still wake up gasping, certain I hear his footsteps. But when I open my eyes, it's just the sea. And that's when I whisper to myself. He didn't win. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A simple line, typed in all caps. "See you soon." I froze. My breath hitched. The world tilted. Then I looked closer. Postmarked from the state prison mailroom. My heart steadied. He was trying to scare me again, even from behind bars. But this time, it didn't work. Because for the first time in years, I smiled. He was behind glass. And I was finally standing in the sunlight. I used to believe healing meant forgetting. That if I just moved far enough, changed my name enough times, maybe even changed the way I looked in the mirror, I could erase him. But healing doesn't erase. It rebuilds. Slowly. Painfully. Honestly. It's been 2 years now since the trial. 2 years since I heard the cell door close behind him. Sometimes I still hear it in my dreams, that final clang. It used to make me flinch. Now, it makes me breathe. The cabin by the coast became my sanctuary. It smells like salt and cedar. The ocean hums outside my window like a lullaby I didn't know I needed. I got a dog, a rescue mutt with one floppy ear and eyes that look too old for his age. I named him Chance. Because that's what I was finally giving myself. Chance to live. Chance to love. Chance to start again. It wasn't easy at first. There were nights I woke up screaming, certain I could hear his voice calling my name through the wind. There were days I couldn't step outside, afraid of the sky, afraid of the air, afraid of being visible again. But the therapist, Grace, kept calling. Even silence can be loud when you've lived in chaos, she told me once. She was right. I'd sit by the ocean for hours, listening to the waves crash, trying to remember what peace sounded like. One morning, as I walked along the beach, I saw a woman jogging toward me. She slowed down, smiled, and said, "You new here?" Her name was Maya. She owned a small cafe in town. And somehow, she didn't ask about my past. She just accepted my present. That's how healing started, not with therapy or time, but with kindness that didn't need explanations. A few months later, I started volunteering at the local community center. They had a support group for survivors, women who had lived their own versions of hell. I didn't plan to speak. But when I sat in that circle, listening to their stories, I realized I wasn't alone. One woman, barely 20, said softly, "I don't think I'll ever be myself again." I took a deep breath. "You won't," I said. "But you'll become someone stronger." When she looked at me, tears in her eyes, I saw my younger self reflected back, the woman who once believed she'd never survive. That night, for the first time, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I slept with the window open. And I dreamed not of running, but of standing still. Sometimes, the fear still finds me. Like the day I got that second letter. It arrived in an ordinary envelope, no return address. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting more threats. But instead, there was just a single sheet of paper. Typed neatly. "Sarah. They told me I won't see the outside again. But I see you every night when I close my eyes. You'll never forget me. That's enough." For a long time, I just stared at the page. Then I folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer, and locked it away. Because he was right about one thing, I'll never forget him. But remembering isn't the same as being haunted. Now, when I think of him, I don't feel fear. I feel strength. Because I lived through him. And that means I can live through anything. Last week, I finally did something I hadn't done in years. I stood in front of the mirror, really stood there, and looked at myself. The scars were still there, faint but visible. The lines around my eyes deeper now. But there was something else, too, something I hadn't seen before. A light. A quiet defiance. A woman who had walked through hell and didn't just survive, she came back burning. I smiled. It felt strange at first, but then it felt real. "Hi, Sarah," I whispered. It was the first time I'd said my real name out loud in over a year. It didn't feel like weakness anymore. It felt like power. That night, I sat by the fire with Chance asleep beside me and opened my journal. I wrote. He broke my bones, but not my soul. He stole my voice, but not my will. He took years from me, but not the rest of my life. Then I closed it and looked out the window. The moonlight spilled across the ocean, calm and endless. And for the first time since that hospital room, I felt completely still. Not waiting for footsteps. Not waiting for danger. Just breathing. Just living. If you're listening to this, if you're reading these words, and you think you can't leave, you can. If you think he'll find you, he might. But you'll still be stronger than his shadow. If you think you're too broken to start over, I promise, you're not. Because I was you once. And now, I'm free. I don't know where this road will lead next. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll teach again. Maybe I'll just keep walking along this beach until the waves wash away every name he ever called me. But I do know this. The woman he tried to destroy isn't here anymore. The one who took her place. She's unbreakable.